All right, today we are jumping into Module 14, which is object-oriented programming, and that is going to represent sort of the next level of difficulty in thinking about programming. And so I want you to give yourself a little bit of grace today, because for some of you, this topic might be a little bit slow to make sense, but we're going to get there. We're going to write some code and try some things out, and through experimentation, which is the best way of learning anything, we will figure this out together. So object-oriented programming is a different way of thinking about coding. Okay, and object-oriented programming exists across several different languages. Not all programming languages support object-oriented programming. You have to have a special set of constructs in the programming language to allow it to happen. Python is one of those, as well as Java, C++. Basically, anything you're going to encounter in the computer science world has object-oriented capabilities. So, why is it called object-oriented programming? Object-oriented programming is called that because in it, we are actually creating what are called objects. And these objects are a special kind of thing that exists in programming that make our lives easier and give us some capabilities that we wouldn't have otherwise. Now, as I'm talking, you might want to get PyCharm opened up because we're going to jump in and out of code throughout this lecture today. So what's object-oriented programming about? Fundamentally, the most important thing to remember is that objects are new because they group data and functionality together in one package. That's what makes them so special. So it's the data, but it's also the things that you do with the data all put together. And the reason that's special or useful is because it makes things easier to manage, it gives you more control, and it makes things easier to debug. And in a lot of ways, it makes your ability to create things with programming much more powerful. So the fundamental or the foundation piece of object-oriented programming are called classes. Classes and objects are related to each other, but they're not the same thing. They're often confused with one another, though. A class, anytime you hear the word class, think of a blueprint. Okay, a blueprint is the design of something. It tells you how something is to be built. But it's not that thing. If I have the blueprint of a house and I give it to you, I've given you the ability to build the house based on that blueprint. I didn't give you a house. I gave you the design of a house. Okay, so a class is defining a model or a design of something, how something is to be constructed. Classes define two different things. Again, it's the data and the things that we do with the data. Also known as methods. That name should be familiar to you because we've been dealing with methods, right? Methods are what? Methods are functions that belong to something. Now we know the other side of the picture. We didn't really know, how does a method exist? So we have string methods, right? They belong to a string. Strings can have methods because strings are, guess what? Objects that are built based on a string class that exists in Python. So a method is the thing that a class or an object that's built on a class can do. A lot like a function, but that function only lives inside that class definition. Okay? The other thing that classes can have are called values or properties. Okay? A class property is data that belongs to a class. Now, I know this feels like I am throwing marshmallows at you right now. It's just sort of like, I'm not sure what this is. It's kind of weird. It's kind of squishy. I'm not really grasping it completely. That's okay. Why? Because object-oriented programming is really something that is best understood by doing it. And I will admit, is one of the things I struggled with when I was like reading about object-oriented programming early on in my programming career. I was like, why would I need this? Like, what's the use? I've got variables, I've got functions. Why do I need objects? What's the benefit? And then as I started using it to do things for me, I thought, oh, now I get it. But it took a bit. So we have functions and variables that live inside the class that are called now methods and properties. And when you call something a method or a property, you know that it belongs to a class. Okay, so when we use a class to create something, so when we use the blueprint to build the house, that house is the instance of that class, or the object. The object that we build is an instance. If you've moved into or you've driven through some of the newer neighborhoods in Bakersfield where they have tract homes, right? What you'll notice is that, maybe there's like actually only like 2 or 3 different houses that they're building, right? They build them in different colors. Sometimes they flip it the other direction where the garage is on one side versus the other. But it's the same blueprint. It's the same floor plan. It's the same house, essentially. And all of those houses are instances of that same floor plan, that same class. And so that's how class and instance, or class and object, are related.